Nur noch in der Bude Tag und Nacht. Nur noch in der Bude auf Verdacht. Hab ja nur die Bude, keine Yacht.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the East Village Cook. My name is Andreas, and today we're making classic rice and beans. Well, it's a 3/4 cup of basmati rice, and the trick is to wash it under hot water. So we want to wash this until the water that comes out of it is clear. And we wash it under hot water because we're gonna fry the rice first. If it's washed with hot water, then it's less sticky if the heat is a little higher. All right, and we let that dry a little bit. Peel one onion. Half of the onion goes into the beans, the other half goes into the rice. Wash it off a little bit. And then half the onion. And then you cut it in little cubes, like 1/8 inches wide. So I like these Le Creuset pots. They're really beautiful and they're working great. And we use a little olive oil. I keep 2 garlic cloves whole because we're using that for the rice. We're grating that, and the other one I keep it a little more coarse, so I like the chunks actually. So we put the onions into the pot, season it a little bit with salt and pepper. And brown them for about 1 or 2 minutes. We cut the carrots in small angled pieces, and that goes into the pot. The carrots go in, and the chopped garlic goes in. We season that batch a little bit. I use a different kind of salt. That's my Szechuan salt and pepper. It's a little citrusy. And we brown that. So these are the beans, whole black beans. You get them at a small deli on 1st Avenue and 12th Street. And it's better to go to these little places these days because you will find long lines at the supermarkets. So go to our local bodegas and they're gonna serve you well. You also want a bay leaf. If you get a fresh one, get a fresh one. 1 cinnamon stick goes in there. Anise stars, 2 anise stars, 2 cloves, and 3 junipers. It all goes in early, so we want to extract the flavor. That's why it goes in before we put the beans in there, so the flavor is nicely extracted. Then we get some spices in there. So we're starting with coriander and the cumin mix. You get this also a dual. And we do 1 tablespoon cumin powder and some hot flakes. The amount of hot flakes is up to you. I put in a 1/2 tablespoon of hot flakes. So we stirred it up a little bit, extracting the flavor, the cumin, coriander, and the hot flakes. And then we put in the rest of the garlic. And reduce the heat a little bit. And then the beans go in, and that's it. So that's all the basics. I always add a little Mirn. This is just gives a nice flavor. A little bit of broth. If it's been sitting in the fridge, shake it well because stuff sinks to the bottom. I put a little, maybe also a tablespoon of Japanese vinegar. You can use any vinegar you want. Worcester sauce. Not too much. Careful with that. That has a very strong flavor. And then like a tablespoon of Dijon Mustard. So these things are all optional. So mix up everything. Taste it. It's good. And let it simmer on low heat, like number 2, for about 20 minutes. We're making red rice. So We wash the tomatoes and then we're grating the tomatoes like such. It gives some moisture to the rice and it gives some flavor to the rice. And we're mixing that up with some stock. If you don't have stock, you can use water. Water is fine, but stock gives a lot more flavor to the rice. Then we put the grated tomatoes into a measuring cup. And then we fill the cup up to 2 cups. The stock. You can use one garlic clove. I use 2. I like it a little bit more spicy. Scrape it out a little bit. Clean that right away. This is not a must-have, but I like to put a little bit of carrots in it. So dice them really in very small pieces. And that'll be a nice addition to the tomato rice. And then red pepper goes in there too. If you don't have a red pepper, use some red flakes. And then what I like to do for spiciness, I like to put in jalapeños. Let's get some jalapeños out of here. You buy them also on the deli on First Avenue and 12th Street. And then we cut them in small pieces and add them to the mix. So all that can go into the broth. And the spring onions, we put them in later as garnish. And then we also have some peas. I recommend buying peas, frozen peas. Keep them in the fridge, just take it out before you make the dish, because fresh peas don't last that long. And what we're doing is we're starting with a little olive oil and start browning the rice. So we put the rice in the pan and start stirring it around a little bit. Coat it nicely with all the olive oil and let it brown. I like to have a little jalapeños in my rice as well, so we're putting a few jalapeños in there just to make it a little more spicy. Make sure they're cut really fine. You don't want any big chunks in there. And keep browning the rice. So once the rice starts browning, I like to put a little bit of a Szechuan salt and pepper. So like 3 pinches is about right. And get that into the mix. Lower the heat down to 3, otherwise the rice sticks to the bottom and you want to just brown it and not fry it at this point. So keep stirring, that's important. And make sure it's nicely coated with oil. Okay, so we put the jalapeños in our stock. So once the rice gets slightly brown, you want to put the onions in there. Roll the lime a little bit before you cut it to get the juices going. Then cut it into half, and with our trusty Chinatown knife, we remove some of the seeds. So now, very important, before you put anything in, we want also a cumin coriander mix. We're using 1 tablespoon of coriander and cumin mix. Put that in. Stir it a little bit around to extract the flavor. And then we put a tablespoon smoked paprika. Use Hungarian, whatever paprika you got handy. But I like that one. Stir it around and extract the flavor. And then it's time for our stock. So it's a chicken stock with 2 tomatoes, carrots, jalapeños, grated garlic, and now this is going into the mix. So we worked it nice into the rice until it's evenly distributed. Cover it, then we let it simmer on low heat for about 15 minutes before we put the peas in it, and then we finish it up with the scallions and the lemon. So after 15 minutes or so, we check in on the rice, and that's how it's supposed to look like. It's pretty good. So we're putting the peas in there. They need about 4 to 5 minutes. So that's nice and moist. Then the juice of 1 lemon, and then let it sit on low heat 4 minutes until we're ready to serve. So once the rice is almost done, it's nice and moist, so you want to scrape it like this a little bit. Make sure it's not sticking to the pan. So rice and beans is a good starter. Goes with any meat you want. Goes with chicken. Goes with pork, fish, red meat, if you eat red meat indeed. And you can keep it in the fridge for several days. 5 days, no problem. Just keep it cold and refrigerate it, and you'll be fine.
Was habt ihr denn nie gecheckt? Im Café ist das direkt. Bleibt doch alle mal daheim. Soziales lasst ihr sein. Zu Hause schmeckt der Wein. Ja, schallert ihn euch rein. 2 Wochen Wohnung, wie schlimm kann das schon sein? Es geht hier um Gesundheit und nicht gemein an Spaß.
Leave the bay leaves in there, even if you refrigerate it, because it gives a nice taste over time.
Brudi, bleib doch einfach mal daheim. Brudi, bleib doch einfach mal daheim.
And we are ready to eat.
Weiß, was mir ist tight. Brudi,
Red rice with beans. I'm good.
nur noch in der